Hey everybody, it's Angela and I'm back with another process video. And I have these frames. They're Prima frames that I got at Tuesday morning the other weekend. And they're nice gold metal frames, and I decided that I'd go ahead and use them all together on a layout. And so I printed these little photos. These are pictures of my granddaughter, and it was her first time in a swing and she just really loved it. And so I decided to use those photos in the frames. I think I have 4 of them, and then there's 6 frames, so 2 of the extra frames I'll just back with pattern paper. And so in order to conserve my photo paper, I had printed the photos really tight together on the paper, which didn't leave me enough room to glue the frames on. So I just cut the photos up and I'm sticking them onto this scrap paper and spacing them out on the scrap paper, and that'll give me room to glue the frames down. So here I am just cutting them out, and the frames themselves, they don't have any like prongs or anything or places for brads to go through, so I decide to use my E6000 glue because that is the type of glue that works with metal. And this tube of glue is really old, and so it's kind of on its last legs here, and it takes me a little bit to get the glue to actually come out of the tube. There is good glue in there, and I finally get it going, just a little bit of it coming out at a time, but that actually works out just fine because these are pretty narrow frames, so I don't need a whole ton of glue. So I just dab little bits of it all around the rim, and then I go ahead and place my frame, and then this way, you know, I have plenty of space to get those glued and positioned on there. I'm just deciding which ones I want where. And you can see in the background that white paper with the green and blue on it, and I had made that paper originally for this, and then I wind up not using it. So I left out the section where I actually used my gelatos and distress ink to make that background, and I of course will use this paper for another layout. So when I do that layout, I'll probably use the portion of video that shows me making the paper. So yeah, I thought I wanted to use it, but then, you know, when I got into the collection pack I decided to go with for this, they had some other pattern papers in it that I just liked better, so I decided to go with them instead. So now I'm just setting my frames aside to dry, and then this collection called Simple Life by Echo Park is what I'm going to use mostly on this layout. And it has this cute little paper here that also brings in the blues and greens, but also a lot of other colors. And I think that was mostly what drew me to it, was because I had done just the blue and green gelatos and stuff on that background paper, and then I felt kind of limited to just those colors, and I wanted something that would bring in more color because I wanted this to be a fun layout, you know, because she's on a swing and that should be fun and exciting. So I wanted more color. So these last 2 frames I'm just going to fill with this pattern paper, so I'm just kind of picking portions that I want to frame out, and again gluing them down, and then I'll set those aside to dry as well. And then this Simple Life collection comes with a bunch of cut apart sheets, and I do you know, cut some of those apart. I think I only wind up using actually 1 card on the layout, but they have a lot of great sentiments and stuff in here. So, and I like it because they're just everyday kinds of quotes, and you know, because it's called Simple Life, and you know, I think sometimes it's the simple pleasures that we need to dwell on, because those are more of the everyday things. You know, sometimes there are great, wonderful moments in our lives, you know, like weddings or birthdays or the birth of a baby or something like that, and those are awesome, but you know, it's the everyday things that kind of keep us going all the time. So we got to, you know, recognize those and appreciate them. And scrapbooking helps me appreciate them and recognize them. So that's what I wanted to do here. And I've decided to use this pink paper because it's nice and soft, and put a border strip down the center. And then I'm going to line up my frames across the center, and then I was going to do a secondary cluster there at the top, but I do wind up kind of changing my mind later. And now I'm just taking some of the stickers from the sticker sheet that comes with the collection and placing those around. And this part did give me a little bit of trouble. It didn't come together quite how I had imagined, and I think that looking back at it, it's because I used such a narrow border strip across the center. I think if I would have used a wider border, it would have kind of helped hold everything together. But that's just such a narrow one, it almost made it look somewhat choppy. I don't know if that makes sense, but so I kind of had to fight with that a little bit in order to really get that filled in. So yeah, I think I just needed a wider border strip to really ground that whole collection of frames, you know, but you know, hindsight's 2020. But I'm just putting down more of the stickers, and I like that Let's Play, but the font was just too bold. It wasn't delicate enough, and this was kind of becoming more delicate. There's more smaller elements on here, and there's a bug that's kind of crawling around on there. I live near a pretty large river near Portland called the Tualatin River, and so it's just buggy. When you live near a river, there's just a lot of extra wildlife, and you know, it's kind of hard to keep them out. So on this cut apart card, I decided to fussy cut the flowers off of it, and I don't actually wind up using them, so I did put them back in the collection to use later, so I know I will use it eventually. I just didn't wind up using it here. But I'm just trying to find ways, like I said, to really ground that center strip and to really fill it in, and that's what I was having problems with. So I'm still looking at the sticker sheets, still kind of just moving things around, trying to find out where something, you know, looks good. And then I start looking through my desk because I realize that I need more texture. You can see there that I did wind up putting one of those cut apart cards in the center. And then I found that bow on my desk from a different project that where I hadn't used it. So I went ahead and put it on there. And then I have a couple little puffy gold hearts that I placed around. So I decide to use some of that really super sticky tape, the score tape, to adhere my photos down with, because the frames, you know, they are metal, so they're somewhat heavy, and I wanted to make sure I had an adhesive that was strong enough to hold them on the page so they wouldn't just fall off later. So I'm just adding that on there and placing them evenly across the sheet. So I'm liking that, but again, it just wasn't filled in enough for me. And I thought it needed more things to kind of connect the elements together. So again, I'm going to go to my stash for that, but before I do, I decided to go ahead and get my title down and, you know, reserve that spot. So these are some Dear Lizzie thickers that I also got at Tuesday Morning a while ago, and I'm just going to make a simple title, just swing, with an exclamation point on there, and I'm looking for the exclamation, then I find it way up there by the O's. It just had that one. It was really weird. So I'm just going to center that below the central photo. And then that kind of brings more weight to that to that central photo, which is more of a close-up, and it's just a really cute picture of her just smiling with joy. She has discovered a swing. So I just had to kind of move that around so that I wouldn't cover up any of the wording on that little sticker right above it. So I like that. And then to bring more texture in, I thought about using one of these paper clips that were on my desk, but I had a hard time getting that to work because I couldn't get the paper clip situated a way that I liked, where the word love would be readable and everything. So I try it in a couple different spots here, and then I go ahead and give up on that. So again, I'm looking for stuff with more texture, and I'm kind of rummaging there around on my desk, and I find some K & Company flowers that are pretty old actually, and I had used some of them on the sheet there, some of the smaller ones, so I had mostly these bigger ones left. So I decided to go ahead and use those, and they do kind of help connect things and span a couple of the gaps, so I like that. But once I got putting them down, they just seemed a little bit too big. You know, some of them, maybe I put too many of them down or something like that. And then I was like, no, I don't like that. So what I do is I wind up pulling some of the big flowers off, and you can see that they have a little flower in the center of them. And so what I do is I pull the big flower off. I just take the little center tops and stick them back on instead. So I have to add a little bit more adhesive to that one. And so I like that better with the smaller flowers. And it does kind of help kind of pull everything together and kind of make that center strip fuller. And instead of doing that secondary cluster at the top, I decide to go ahead and put this frame just right above that center photo. And it's got a little bird, and then I put a puffy gold heart in that frame as well. And so that again just kind of draws your eye right to that central photo. And then I wind up journaling on that tag right above that round frame between those two little frames. I just put her name and the date. And then these are some strips that I printed off from my computer, and it's part of a poem by Robert Louis Stevenson, and it's called Swing, and it says, "How do you like to go up in a swing, up in the air so blue? Oh, I do think it the pleasantest thing ever a child can do." And when I saw those photos, I thought of that poem because I had a book of Robert Louis Stevenson poems when I was little, and I used to love to read them. So, and I loved that poem, so these pictures really reminded me of that. So I just went ahead and put that on there. And now I'm covering up my photos and stuff so I can put some gold sprinkles, some Heidi Swapp sprinkles on there. So I go ahead and I kind of follow that central line, and then I also put some kind of down below the poem, just to kind of tie that all together. But once I had put the poem on the bottom, it kind of put me a little bit heavy to the bottom of the layout, and since I have most of it kind of central, I thought the whole design should be central too. So what I decide to do is to trim off some of the top just to make that kind of even again, and then I'm going to mount it on another color of paper. So there I kind of even it out, and then now I'm looking for a piece of paper to mount the layout on, and so I choose this one. I'm I'm just going to cut the manufacturer's strip off the bottom of it. And then I can't put my adhesive on the back of the pink one because the gold sprinkles aren't dry yet. And so I just kind of mark where the pink paper is going to cover. And then I go ahead and just put some adhesive strips down on the blue paper, because I tried really hard to be careful with that pink paper, because you know, after all this, I didn't want to smear the gold sprinkles around, yet I was too impatient to just let it dry. So there I go. I put a bunch of adhesive down. Now I just have to get the little backing strips off. And this layout was a little difficult for me to do and everything, but you know, I stuck with it and persevered. Sometimes even if your mojo isn't, you know, running high some days, you know, if you just kind of persevere, you can still turn out a layout that you really like. And in the end, I really like this layout. It's very sweet and very delicate. And yeah, so here's some close-ups of it. And thank you guys so much for watching and persevering through it with me. And if you have any questions or anything, you know, just leave me a comment below. And again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.